Mr. Chairman, Senator Vitter, thank you for allowing me to sit beside Hoot Gibson. He in the right seat beside me. That makes him my co-pilot. I often wondered what it was like for those poor Southwest captains when he would sit down in the right seat beside them and there was Hoot flying that 737. Here, it's yours, pal.
I'm here to support you.
Thank you. It's good to have a wingman. I'm a freelance journalist now, 18 years covering the space program, most of that with my former employer, a large cable news network. Lowercase. I moved on. I'm now working on the web, as a lot of my compadres in journalism are right now, in partnership with spaceflightnow.com. We have a weekly program called This Week in Space, and this will be the lead story this week. I also need to tell you I serve as the chairman of the Education and Public Outreach Committee for the NASA Advisory Council, and to be clear today, my views here are my own, not anything to do with my NAC business. Mr. Chairman, Washington in general, we have a problem. There is an uproar across the land about NASA's budget, its course change, and it says a lot about how the public is no longer in the loop with the space agency. You know, the headlines read, NASA cancels its moon mission. I would submit to you that most people reading those stories didn't know we were going to the moon. And guess what? We really weren't the way it was funded. The program was packaged as the vision for space exploration. It never got its promised funding, as we've discussed here. And the vision, frankly, was focused a little bit on the rearview mirror. Constellation was touted as Apollo on steroids, but it really turned out to be a bit of a 90-pound weakling, didn't it? It was uninspired in its attempt to bring back the magic of the 60s. NASA, it seems to me, was acting a little bit like one of those middle-aged guys who was the high school football hero and won the state championships and spends all his time talking about the glory days. But the country has grown up and moved on. And I think it's time for NASA to get off the bar stool a little bit here and think about what's next. And that's what I see in this budget. I see a lot of optimism here. This is a grown-up approach to space exploration. It syncs the goals with national needs and the budgetary realities right now. I'd love it if we could do it all. It'd be great if we could go back to the moon. But does that lead us really anywhere farther out? The space agency is getting a bit of a slap in the face. They should be saying, thanks, I needed that, I suppose. But what we're hearing is not that. Now, change is never easy. But let's think about this for a minute. NASA is supposed to be all about change. In fact, if NASA cannot embrace change, actually invent change, we should close the place down. But there's more to this than that, because as much as anything else, we have here a failure to communicate. I give the administration plan high marks for its reassessment of priorities, but it did a horrible job telling the story. The headline should have been, space is now open for business, or space travel for the rest of us, or space station science gets a reprieve, or NASA is working on green aviation and fixing air traffic delays, or focusing on our favorite planet, Mother Earth. You get the idea. Instead, we got a bunch of the blue moon stories. Well, one of the reasons for this is it is my understanding this decision was closely held in the White House Office of Science and Technology, and it was rolled out essentially to NASA, to the key people at NASA, the weekend before the budget rolled out. I guess they were reluctant to tell the kids. So, but most people knew that Constellation was essentially a dead man walking. But denial is a powerful thing, and so NASA was caught a bit flat-footed with no strategic plan on how to explain the nuance of this story. And let's face it, the mainstream media doesn't have a clue either. Reporters who know some things about this beat have been unceremoniously dumped by the big papers and networks right and left, and many of them are, well, they're webcasting, I guess. So I guess you could say it's the perfect storm. The agency is really not sold on the change internally. The communication plan was non-existent, and the reporters are not well informed, and the public is disengaged. But the people like me who care a lot about this and have a passion for it are out there. And in advance of this testimony, I sought some opinions via Twitter and Facebook, my little circle of space cadets. And I'd like to have those comments submitted for the record, if you don't mind. There's a lot of passion out there, and a lot of people care deeply about what happens next. Like so many of the people I have heard from, many of whom have worked long and hard on Constellation. And I do hope we create sort of a space station freedom scenario here, where pieces of this can live on. I wish that NASA had not been painted into this corner. I wish we could have been thinking about and investing in the next great adventure for humans in space decades ago, so we wouldn't be facing this huge gap right now in human spaceflight capability. It could morph into abyss if we're not vigilant. That's the hand we've been dealt. Trying to recreate the past is not the path to go. Yesterday's technology is not the path. The public won't support it. Thank you for your time.